From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Rob Westgate. An extreme cold warning for Saskatchewan has shifted into southern Manitoba and the western edge of Ontario. Environment Canada says temperatures are expected to feel like minus 40 with the wind chill factored in. In Winnipeg, people are being warned to dress appropriately and cover up, as frostbite can develop within minutes on exposed skin, especially with wind chill. The bitter weather front is expected to continue pushing east throughout the day. A pair of men convicted of human smuggling between Canada and the U.S. are seeking either acquittal or new trials. The high-profile case centered around a family from India that froze to death while trying to walk across the Manitoba border into the U.S. back in January of 2022. Lawyers for the two men say the evidence presented to the jury was insufficient to prove their guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They also suggested that if the government's late evidence disclosures were filed on time, the outcome of the trial could have been different. Health officials in Quebec are warning people in the province that they may have been exposed to the measles. On its website, the government lists more than a dozen possible exposure locations, including 12 in the Laurentians region, a pair in Laval, and one in Montreal. They say the update comes after 4 new cases were reported in connection to an outbreak that began last month. A total of 56 measles cases were recorded in 2024. New Orleans held a vigil on Bourbon Street last night to mourn and celebrate the lives of those killed after a man rammed a pickup truck into a crowd of revelers celebrating New Year's Eve. Reporter Chuck Severson says the suspect posted several videos before the attack took place.
The Facebook video, which law enforcement says was posted hours before the deadly attack, shows Samsud-Din Jabbar in his car, apparently driving to New Orleans. He tells his family that he joined ISIS earlier in 2024. He says he wanted to do something to focus the country on the war between the believers and disbelievers, telling his family with a voice of disdain, "I don't want you to think I spared you willingly."
The investigation is continuing into the motives and how the man carried out the attack before he was killed by police during a firefight. Ukraine's president says he will again call on allies to boost its air defenses at this week's meeting in Germany. Volodymyr Zelensky's latest plea comes as U.S. President-elect Donald Trump takes over later this month with a vow to end the war quickly. Zelensky says dozens of partner countries will participate in the meeting at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, adding, quote, including those who could help boost our capabilities not only to defend against missiles, but also against guided bombs and Russian aviation. And finally, the farewell for former U.S. President Jimmy Carter continues. His flag-draped casket was taken to the Carter Presidential Center, where he'll lie in state until early Tuesday. National rites will continue in Washington and conclude Thursday with a funeral at Washington National Cathedral, followed by a return to Plains, Georgia. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, let's start off by taking a look at the NHL Saturday night results. Matthew Knies recorded his first career hat trick, lifting Toronto to a 6-4 victory over the Boston Bruins. Captain Austin Matthews also making his return from injury. The Montreal Canadiens edged out the Colorado Avalanche in a shootout 2-1. The Habs wrap up their road trip with a 4-2 record. The Detroit Red Wings extended their winning streak to a season-high 4 games with a 4-2 win over the Winnipeg Jets. The Nashville Predators snagged a 4-1 victory from the Calgary Flames, while the Edmonton Oilers beat the Seattle Kraken 4-2. On to the World Juniors, where the Finns beat the Swedes 4-3 in overtime, and the U.S. topped the Czechs 4-1. Up next, the PWHL, which saw New York blank Minnesota 5-0. And there were 2 games in the NFL, Baltimore beating Cleveland 35-10, while Cincinnati got past Pittsburgh 19-17. From the Canadian Press, I'm Rob Westgate.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.